Hello, this is Bruce Rosensteel, and I'm going to do a brief tutorial here on converting a color image to black and white using Lightroom's Develop module. My image is one of a white church, Espiritu Santo, in Goliad, Texas. And what drew me to this image initially was the white building with the scalloped edge here and this nice shadow on this side of the building, the shadow here as well, and the blue sky that was behind it. Knowing that I could, in a black and white image, create a nice contrasting image of the whites, the shadows, and a dark sky. So that's what I'd like to do in this, with this image. And we're going to start initially with perspective correction by going to lens correction. I always have my profile corrections and chromatic aberration checked, and I'm just going to run auto here, which will do a little bit of straightening, as you can see. I still have this wall being bent out a little bit, but that's not going to be an issue because I'm going to crop in from there. And so I'm going to start now, go to my crop, and I'm just going to focus our attention on what I consider to be the very interesting part of this image, which is the shadow here leading into the building, taking your eye across this wall here. I find that to be quite interesting, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring that in and focus our attention really on that area of the image. As you know, when you're cropping, you could also hit your L key to reduce the distracting elements of your normal Lightroom screen. And so you can really see what that will look like without any distraction. And then you can toggle back to your normal screen. So when I'm done with that, I can just hit done, and you can see now my attention is going to be more drawn to the shadow, the scallops, and this edge. I think I want a little bit more here, so I'm just going to drag that down just a tiny bit more. So we have a little bit more here, a little more space for this particular curve. See, this is quite bright here, and what I want to do, of course, is minimize that so you have a more distinct edge here, and really bring out the shadows, reduce the whites as well a little bit because they're a little bit bright here. But really that bright area, if we look, is right here. So there's not very much of it as far as being blown out, and we'll be able to manage that very well. So looking at my presets, you can see the blue high contrast really starts bringing in some of that building and shadow here. Green doesn't do quite as much. Red, infrared's very minimal. Red filter just kind of whitens everything, as does my red filter. So I'm going to just start with this blue high contrast filter as a starting point. You see that brings me some texture here in the walls, and creates quite a bright sky, which is what we're going to have to address in just a moment. I'm going to bring down my midtones a little bit here because I know I shot this quite bright to the right of my histogram, and so I'm going to bring that down, tone it down a little bit. My highlights are already brought down to 50%, and that's probably can be sufficient. We could bring that down a little bit more. And then I think I'm going to bring up the whites, and I can hold my Alt key down, and then as I bring this across, you can see when it starts to get too bright, you get these, let's see, it'll turn white here on this black. So we'll just bring it up to here, and that brings out a little bit more of the white here, which I think I prefer. The blacks look like it should be okay, but potentially we can bring that down a little bit more. As you bring it across, you can see you start to lose the detail in those shadows, which you really don't want to do. So we'll go at -24 for that. We're going to leave the shadows alone in this particular case. And this is our starting point now. And so we've brought out the shadows kind of nicely here, a nice contrast with the white. You've got some nice texture on the walls. But now what we want to do is bring down the white of the sky so that it creates a nice contrast. So I'm going to go here to my, my color sliders, in this case my black and white mix, which is comprised of all the colored that we have available to us. And what we want to do is to bring down the blue and the aqua. You can see here the blue high contrast filter made those quite bright, but we actually want to go the opposite direction with them. We can do that in a couple of different ways. We can just drag the slider down here. I can bring this blue down. As I do that, you can see the sky is getting darker. I can also click on the icon here in this left corner, place that on the blue area, and I can drag it down. As you can see on the right here that has reduced that blue even more and started to reduce the aqua as well. And again, I have a darker sky here. It's also starting to bring out the texture of those clouds that were there that we really couldn't see. So I can do that, and I could also drag down here where we knew we had some aqua coloring because that was the color that was actually picked up in the shadow. So I can bring that down a little bit more, and you can see I've got a little more darker here. It's darker here, and it's a greater contrast and gives me a much better look at this image. Create a nicer contrast, which we're looking for. I can do a comparison here as well, so you can see this is where we started, this is where we are now. Much more interesting and dynamic and dramatic image than it was previously. Go back to the single. I can just click right here. I do have a spot that I need to remove, so I'll just drag that here and get rid of that quickly. I do have a bit of noise here in the clouds and in the sky that I can get rid of through noise reduction. I can also try using a brush just to get rid of the noise. And I've got a preset called Noisy Sky that has a 100% negative clarity and 100% noise. And I can put that over the sky and just kind of brush that area. And you can see it's going to get a little bit smoother than it was previously. I can zoom in on that if you'd like to see that. And here we have it zoomed in. And you can see that's definitely smoother than it was. It's still a little choppy, and that could be just in the screen itself. And click done. And there we have a very quick look at conversion of color image to black and white. And I hope that was interesting to you. Thank you very much. Over and out.